Now, Paul's here, and we'll talk about Banks Peninsula Settlement Stormwater Management Plan, please.
Thank you. Good morning. As I talk to you, I'll call up the support team. My name is Paul Dixon. I'm a stormwater planner in Three Waters Unit. You know Gavin. And supporting us also Henare Jasa Pranaki and Walcott from Manaki Kurataya. MKT is a resource environment management advisory company that provides a link between Runanga and the council on environmental matters. Would you like to put the chair on, sir? The Te Pātaka o Rā Kaihautu Banks Peninsula Stormwater Settlement Stormwater Management. It's a big document, and I'm going to try and paint you a word picture in 4 minutes. The Te Pātaka o Rā Kaihautu Banks Peninsula Settlement Stormwater Management Plan contains 3 themes. One is what we know about the water environment on the peninsula. Another is the actions that are planned to be compliant with consent conditions. And the third is the challenges of dealing with stormwater contaminants on the peninsula and generally. I'd like to acknowledge a number of groups who made submissions on the SMP, and particularly to thank representatives of the full Runanga who met with us and developed formal position statements about the significance to mana whenua of the water of stormwater and water environments. This SMP summarises what we know about the water environment in Te Pātaka o Rā Kaihautu and the expectations of the public and Papatipu Runanga. Most submissions to the SMP ask the council to do more than it's planning for the near term. More to stabilise hillsides and stream banks, more to trap sediment and urban contaminants, and more to care for the harbours and maunga kai. All Runanga referred to the harm caused by sediment entering the harbours. Sediment from rural land, which is by far the majority of sediment sources, is not a SMP issue. It's not usually a Christchurch City Council responsibility. However, it has to be acknowledged that it is at least as significant to many people as urban contaminants like zinc and copper. Compliance. The SMP needs to be compliant with consent conditions. It must do that within a funding envelope provided by the long-term plan. We believe it's a compliant SMP, but realistically it only goes a little way toward addressing the effects of stormwater contaminants, and the amount of contaminants it will deal with is quite minor. Why was there not more funding? The answer to that is mostly because there was insufficient information available to the council about issues in the catchment when budgets were set. We've learned a lot since then. At that time, very large planning resources would have been needed to better inform us, and they were not available. Even if they had been available, they may not necessarily have resulted in a different plan. More about that in a minute. So this SMP goes only a very small way toward reducing the load of contaminants coming from settlements. Partly the issue is budget, but also settlements are very dispersed, and so are contaminants. It is more difficult to install treatment systems on the peninsula than it is in the city, and contaminants are difficult to treat anywhere anyway. For these reasons, we had to think differently about what we could achieve in accordance with the intentions of the CSNDC, our discharge consent. We developed other targets aimed at improving water body and cultural health, enhancing in-stream and riparian habitats by riparian planting, stream bank protection, contaminated sediment removal, and inanga spawning can improve waterway cultural health indices and indicators of environmental health. Runanga agreed with this approach. The third thread in the SMP is that In developing stormwater management plans, we learned that stormwater treatment may only be part of the answer. Stormwater treatment typically removes 55 to 75% of metals and maybe 80% of sediment. That, of course, is much better than doing nothing. But it may not remove enough contaminants to achieve clean water standards, and it comes at a high cost. Most practitioners, and I'm talking about nationwide, agree that dealing with contaminants at source is preferable to treatment, but that also comes at a cost. We may have to adopt different and more expensive building materials. I know the council's aware of these issues. There would have to be technology changes to get zinc out of vehicle tyres, for example, and we would have to rethink the use of other contaminants like moss killers, hormones, and herbicides we use regularly. In the medium term, beyond this SMP, there need to be conversations between the council and citizens and Tangata Whenua and Environment Canterbury about how we protect the environment. Tipu Runanga said that to us clearly. We need to discuss what matters to us about the environment, what we want to protect and restore, how to make changes, and the time frames over which change can occur. I see this stormwater management plan as a necessary small step forward and a starting point for conversations. I thank Runanga for their supportive comments and constructive recommendations. Thank you.
Pauline?
Thank you. So what I'm hearing from you is what the recommendation is, and that's a morphing of the option 1 and 2 in the original consultation, isn't it?
Yes, there were roughly equal support for
Yeah.
options 1 and 2.
And so you're saying it's acceptable, but we could do a lot better if we had a little bit more funding and more information.
I'm saying that submitters asked us to do better, and Runanga certainly are asking us to do better. In fact, councils all throughout New Zealand understand that, you know, there's more to be done.
Yeah.
So I'm not, at the moment, I'm not pressing the council to do more. I'm suggesting conversations are due. And
So this is the funding is set for, was it 28, 29?
It's 2025, 35, or was it 24, 34, I think it is.
Yeah, but it's not due to be spent till 28?
It's a few years ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not.
Would it be an advantage to bring some of that forward, or would you'd seek permission to do that when you're ready?
I think we'll seek permission. There are mechanisms to do that.
Okay.
If necessary.
And the other thing is, I mean, I think you said that there's quite a reasonable amount of OPEX in the filters.
There is, yes.
So are you looking at using the oyster shell ones that they're trialling in Hagley Park and I think Haytons?
We're proposing to use oyster shell filters at the tail end of wetlands, which unlikely to happen in Banks Peninsula. They're also used in purpose-built downpipe filters. Yeah. And I see that as a future option for some buildings in Banks Peninsula.
Right.
It's something we are exploring.
And that would be the reduced OPEX, is it?
I don't think it's a very large OPEX cost. The filter media lasts quite a long time, but there is an OPEX cost involved here.
Thank you.
All right, please.
Thank you. So thank you, Paul, and the rest of the team. And so
I'm moving it, by the way.
oh yeah, I'm happy to.
Second it.
So just to sort of tease this out a little bit. So fundamentally, this is to help council meet consent conditions, right? That's that's the base. So, and you mentioned that of course we could do better, right? Let's do better in terms of like the things that we can do to mitigate the. But like, so I mean, it's fair to say. So what we've really got here though is it's a plan. Obviously, but like, you know, we're not sort of flailing around in the dark, right? Like we can actually make deliberate decisions about how we allocate resources if we're able to procure those resources to be able to do that better thing that you kind of alluded to. Would that be a fair statement?
I have tried, I've said that I think what we need now is a conversation about where we want to go and the means we want to use to get there. We've developed our ideas over the years. We know a lot more than we did, but we know that we believe that any path we choose will be difficult for someone. And I believe there needs to be discussion about who is the burden and why we want to bear it. I think it'll be easier. There is a burden to be borne. I think it'll be easier if we can agree about.
Stormwater has been a really fun thing for Bings Peninsula in the last couple of months. But part of those conversations will be about, what can we do to mitigate the things that actually cause risk to life and property as well, right? I mean, that's part of the conversation? It's not just about contaminants, right? They cause.
It's a conversation it's a good conversation to have. It's not really part of the stormwater management plan. It's not. The management plan is not funded to deal with flooding.
Yeah. Okay.
Yanni, please.
Thank you. Just had two questions. The first is, I know I raise about Bells Creek every time, and I know we've got a filtration device, and it's been in for probably 10 years, maybe around about 10 years. But we still don't know how it's performing, and we've got a process underway to look at that, and I think that's going to be done in 2026. But basically, I guess my concern is that we don't, rush to use that technology without understanding the impact of what we've previously invested in terms of cost and effect. So,
the technology since that time, new technology has come along. It's called a biofilter. The brand name is Filtera, delivered by the same company, but it's more effective and not as expensive. So if we do use a filter, we're much more inclined to use this biofilter. I've heard of them being installed, being planned to treat the Addington, Riccarton and Wainoni catchments.
okay, so we can have some degree of confidence that we won't repeat a mistake, but the trial, I always understand Bells Creek by project, understand how well those sorts of mechanical systems or those art systems work compared to natural systems, right?
Yeah, the systems that are proposing sort of like Ripper, elsewhere, so we're not the first ones to.
Just the second question from me was in regards to the consenting process. So once we approve this, it still goes to ECAN for final. Given the cultural values on the peninsula and given ECAN's previous decisions, and I think there's been court decisions as well around taking into account cultural values, and, the wastewater treatment issues obviously are the key there. Do we have any sense from ECAN around the risk of us not doing more and what their response may be in requiring us to do more? Because we've got another case with wastewater where it doesn't matter the cost, it's to get compliance with the values has been extraordinarily expensive. And I'm just interested if we've got a similar risk around this.
I wouldn't like to prejudge what Environment Canterbury might say. I could imagine them coming back to us and saying, couldn't you do more? So I think I'd characterise that as a possibility.
Thank you very much. Tyler, please.
Good, guys. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Awesome. I just had one question, and it's around the financial impact. So you said that getting the work done now would have a significant financial economic burden on the council, the ratepayer, or other organisations potentially. Has there been a scope done on the long-term impacts on if we spread out the work across the years from 28 onwards?
I think that I didn't make a comment about the budget for the stormwater management plan. I said that the gap between where we are now as a nation, as cities, and obtaining a clean water environment, it's a very big gap, and it's potentially very costly. I wasn't proposing that we assign a budget to that. I was proposing that we initiate a conversation.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, no worries. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming in. So we have in front of us, we have a mover, which is Tyrone, a second up for Pauline. Is there any discussion or debate that anyone would like to have? So I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. That's carried. Brilliant. Thank you very much.